The Overstood Human Podcast. Unfiltered dialogue, real solutions, no labels. The Overstood Human Podcast exists to inspire people to live with strength, freedom, and a purpose in a world full of noise and division. We champion a life anchored in true health, strong family, personal sovereignty, and self-discovery, inspiring our listeners to thrive beyond the confines of the design system. Our mission is to inspire you to break free from mediocrity, think independently, and live a life of meaning, resilience, and impact. Hello, everybody. My name is Frank Tortorici.
My name is Sarah Green, and this is the Overstood Human Podcast.
All right, Sarah, how are we doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. How's life been treating you?
It's busy, but I can't complain. How
One
about
time
you?
when I ask you that, I want to hear you say, God, I got to get going. I feel so like I'm so decompressed. Time.
I would love to say I'm so bored. I could say I'm bored.
That's it. I want to hear you say you're
guys.
bored. I want to hear that.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know, Sarah is never bored or has any downtime, but there you go.
No. Well, you probably don't either. I mean, it's just go. But
yeah, go. But I'm not at your speed. I'm not at your speed, but you know. So we welcome everybody here, whether you're joining us on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, or X. Thank you for joining us at the Overstood Human Podcast. We hope you're enjoying all the shows. Tonight's episode, tonight, wherever time zone you're tuning in, morning, whatever that may be, we are going to discuss multiple sclerosis. That's been making headline news a lot lately, primarily due to Christina Applegate and Selma Blair, the two actresses who are suffering with it's an autoimmune disease that attacks the immune system, neurological, etc. But we're seeing, according to headline news and lamestream media and conventional medicine, they're claiming we're starting to see more and more multiple sclerosis diagnoses popping up, along with they're saying heart disease in younger 20, 40, and 30-year-olds, and cancer's booming. And we're going to get on all those into other episodes for sure, because that can't go unnoticed and needs to be addressed. But tonight is specifically about multiple sclerosis. So here's a quick little tidbit. MS is an autoimmune disorder that the immune system attacks the protective myelin sheath covering around nerve fibers in the brain and spinal cord. About 1 million Americans are estimated to be living with MS. Women are diagnosed about 3 times more than men, and most diagnoses occur between the ages 20 and 50 years old. Okay. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, and we hear this a lot with everything, autism and all that. Oh, they're testing more now, or they have better means to test this stuff. And I don't believe that. I think that this stuff's been going on and on and on and on. And yes, we're I guess they're testing more, but I don't think that there's more people getting it than there were back then. We're just more aware of it now. But there are a lot more factors now that could be contributing also to spikes of it. There's a lot to unpack there. I guess, right? There's no like hardcore answer or thing, evidence about that. Now, they say that one of the strongest known risk factors is with MS that most have in common is that there's been an Epstein-Barr virus present. And that doesn't really help us much, because if you look at statistic wise, I think the CDC says, I think it's about 98% of all Americans have some form of Epstein-Barr virus. So it's significantly high. Sarah, Epstein-Barr, I mean, to my knowledge, it's mono that goes untreated. Because a lot of times people could have mono and be really, they're just fatigued or not feeling great, and they just kind of brush it off. And that was me when I was 16, 17. I was going through that, and then I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr. Until this day, I still, like as I was telling you off camera, I can feel flare-ups of when it happens. Your joints hurt. It's a fatigue that's in a class of all by itself, the type of fatigue you feel from Epstein-Barr. mono Epstein-Barr? Like what's your background on that? Where does that come from? How does that happen?
Well, it's contagious. It's a virus. And it, I think a lot of when we look for it in patients, when I look for it in patients, I will test IgG and IgM, so antibodies against it. And so different types of antibodies like IgG versus IgM. IgM is usually an acute rise. So if someone's got a high IgM, then they are most likely actively infected with Epstein-Barr. IgG is someone who has had it in the past and has now made lifelong antibodies against it. So I can test somebody and say, at some point in your life, you were infected with Epstein-Barr. Now, our body typically, without a bunch of exposure to all these different environmental toxins and food toxins and everything, because everything's pretty toxic right now in our environment, the
You
body should
don't
be
say.
able to, yeah, it's crazy, but your immune system, ideally, the way God made us, would suppress any kind of reactivation of Epstein-Barr, right? So I think probably something that I can say where people can kind of correlate, like you're going to catch before the chickenpox vaccine, like you and I were pretty similar in age. When we were younger, we got chickenpox, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so typically chickenpox is like a one and done thing. You're going to catch chickenpox, you're going to build up antibodies against it, and then if you're ever exposed to it or there's something going on, like your antibodies will prevent you from having a flare up. However, with the way the world is right now in our environment, a lot of our bodies are immunosuppressed, immunocompromised, and so you can have a reactivation of those things. Reactivation of chickenpox is actually herpes zoster, shingles. But so for my patients who have had a prior diagnosis of Epstein-Barr or didn't even know they had it and they got really high IgG antibodies, then I say you had it at some point, but that doesn't mean that you can't have these flare-ups, like what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And we your typical symptoms younger, it's like sore throat. It kind of mimics strep throat.
Right.
Get really big tonsils, and a lot of times one of the classic things is you go to the doctor and they treat you with antibiotics, amoxicillin, thinking that you've got strep throat, and you end up with this super gnarly rash, and that's because you're using an antibiotic for Epstein-Barr. So it's kind of like this classic symptom or reaction to an antibiotic with it. But you want to use supportive measures. It's just like any other virus. You want to
Right.
strengthen the immune system. Sometimes people, if they're really sick and they have a difficult time swallowing, my daughter was one of them. She was 6 when she was diagnosed, and we had to do IV steroids, IV fluids, and really supportive care. Avoid any kind of contact sport or anything that potentially could injure the spleen or the liver, because you're going to have typically an enlarged spleen at that time, and your liver enzymes can be elevated. And so the worst thing you want to do is go and have some acute injury where your spleen is much easier to actually rupture. So, but
Mm-hmm.
it's supportive. But I think that when we get exposed to these viruses that weaken the immune system, they can reactivate and come out and cause other issues down the line. So for this particular topic with MS, a lot of that, potentially is a pathway for other autoimmune diseases. And autoimmune, what does it mean? It means you're attacking yourself. Auto is self, and you're attacking yourself. Why are we attacking ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, we could go on and on. This could be a 10-hour episode on what is happening in our environment that
Mm-hmm.
turns self against self. And so that is there. There's a link. There's a correlation between people who had Epstein-Barr and mononucleosis and then MS.
And mono, to my knowledge, is a virus that spreads specifically through saliva droplets, correct? They call that like the
Right.
kissing virus, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you can get it from like, my daughter used to, when she was little, she'd like suck her hair. I'm like, that's so gross. So you touch everything and then suck her hair.
Right.
We had a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. Don't judge me. That was back before I was awake. And like, she's sucking her hair. We're going on the ride. She's sucking her, I'm like, this is so gross. And then she got super sick with this. And so
Mm.
you can sneeze, you can cough, whatever, you touch something and then someone else touches it. So it is through saliva,
Right.
but you don't have to, but it's kind of that you get diagnosed early 20s, you're like, who are you making out with? Because
The spin the bottle virus, right?
yeah, right. Oh boy, that just took me. Yeah, we're the same age almost. So you're like back in the day when there wasn't social media or anything to track what you're doing. But no,
Uh-huh.
and they're our immune systems are not. We have to support them, and when
Right.
we continue to do things consciously or subconsciously or environmental that just continues to kind of take a hit, this is one of those things.
Sure. Sure. And as per the CDC and other websites that I was able to pull some data here, they're saying that other factors associated with the higher risk of MS are low vitamin D levels, smoking, and secondhand smoke as well. That's another thing I was reading an article on this, that they were finding that 20 to 30% of people with MS were like exposed to a good amount. I don't know how they regulated it, but secondhand smoke
Mm.
was a factor. And you think of all of the pesticides, chemicals, heavy metals that are burning in cigarettes, right?
Oh yeah,
So
sure, absolutely.
yeah, so a lot of that comes to that. Then they say obesity during adolescence and certain genetic traits can all be associated with MS. Now, if we unpack that and we look at the low vitamin D levels, um, and we've touched on this before when we talk vitamin D, when we talk the connection with people taking statins to lower their cholesterol, the vital role that cholesterol plays with vitamin D, the connection, especially when you go out into the sun, the conversion of cholesterol to vitamin D3, K2. Um, so having low vitamin D is dangerous on so many levels, right?
Mm. Yeah.
We're talking cancer, depression, immune system, bone density health, hormone health. Um,
Hmm.
all I can say to that is get yourself into the sun with no sunscreen, early morning, late morning. Avoid like peak hours if you live in a crazy hot place. Late afternoon, early evening, 15 20 minutes. Your diet is a huge factor. Obviously, if you're a very very pale person, the guidelines will be a little bit different. But even somebody who is extra pale, you can build tolerance for the sun little by little, right? You start building. Uh, I mean, I can't remember the last time I got sunburned. I mean, granted, I'm Sicilian, but when I was younger, I've experienced some sunburns when my diet wasn't what it is now. When I wasn't so tuned in to trying to get early morning sun, your body develops a tolerance, and there's layers and levels to the depth of how you can process the sun's rays, right? It's very beneficial. We've touched on this, like all living things need sunlight, all
Hmm.
living things. So the
Hmm.
fact that we've been duped and hoodwinked into thinking that it's something that we should be avoiding is just a clear testament to how deep the tentacles of the medical mafia and the Rockefeller School of Medicine really is, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's
Don't
it's
even call
pretty
it vitamin D either. We should be calling it hormone D.
hormone D. Yeah,
That
true.
it's a hormone. So
Yeah,
even just the name itself is very misleading because it's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. But
absolutely,
um yeah.
absolutely. Hmm. Um,
Yeah.
and then obviously smoking. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Look, I mean, you look at like indigenous tribes and all that, smoking like pure tobacco leaf. I mean, I'm not advocating smoking. I don't smoke cigarettes or anything like that. Never have. But there obviously is a difference, right, to the cigarettes that people are sucking on nowadays compared
Sure.
to like pure tobacco leaf. If you again talk to an indigenous tribe, it's a completely different product.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at like, a lot of the data that's coming out more and more, just even about nicotine with combating viruses, COVID, things like that.
Yeah.
There's benefits there, but obviously you're smoking Newports and Marlboros and Camels and all that. I mean, the amount of chemicals that you're inhaling is just absurd. Like, it makes me like, that's one of the smells that like irritates me so much, secondhand smoke. And especially if I'm with my son, like I get so mad. Like, like even if we're in the car and the windows are open and there's two cars in front of me and you could smell it. It's such an intoxicating smell, and it just oversteps its boundaries. It's not, it makes me angry, like it's just, and as again, and they're finding with these studies, secondhand smoke is a big culprit with MS too, because again, we're talking heavy metals, a lot of pesticides, chemicals, burning, and that you're not just, inhaling nicotine, tobacco. I mean, that's probably the least that you're inhaling with all that stuff.
Yeah, and if you think about secondhand smoke, like someone who's actually smoking, they're smoking it through a filter usually, and so they're
Mm-hmm.
actually, even though you're getting all these toxins anyways, but you're actually getting a filtered version. But the secondhand smoke coming off the end of the cigarette is not a filtered version. So I would probably
Mm,
argue that there may be some increased risk of secondhand smoke versus someone who's actually smoking, because
absolutely.
filtration system. I also
Absolutely.
think autoimmune, like why are we attacking ourselves? The diet is so important. I can't stress that enough.
Mm-hmm.
Having a diet that is low in inflammatory processes, processed foods, seed oils, sugar, flour, like all those things just set your body up for failure. We want to build the immune system, and if you're exposing yourself to an environment that just keeps taking you out at the knees, how are you going to be able to fight that? And so um, there's things we can control, and there's things we can't control, and what we can control, we need to try as best we can to put ourselves in an environment that is as low toxic of a load as possible. It's critical.
Absolutely.
It's critical.
Absolutely. And that was the next topic that they had in this, was obesity during adolescence. I mean, why, we're seeing more and more young children um, obese, type 2 diabetic, and
Yeah.
that's that's all parents' fault right there, because when you have a young kid, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, don't there's plenty of times when I do intake calls with clients and I even work with families, one of the things I'll get is, oh, well, I got to get him to eat something or get her to eat something. So, something is better than nothing. And that's
Mm,
actually not true. It's actually not true.
sure.
If I'd rather see your kid skip a meal if it means them not eating something out of a processed package or a fast food restaurant, because that's not real food. They're not getting any nutritional value from that anyway. All you're
Right.
doing with foods like that is just creating new patterns and habits that are going to go into their adult life, that will create food addictions, just a horrible relationship with food, right?
Mhm.
um, so you know all food is not created equal, and that's what I try to get a lot of parents to think, where they come from that mindset, well, they're a picky eater, I got to get them to eat something. If you're getting them to eat that crap, you're just tricking out and rewiring their brain into a path and pattern that is going to take years and years to undo, and just set all of these new habits for your child that are not going to be beneficial for them in any way, shape, or form, like
Mhm.
none. And I don't even know what the stat is for it, but it's alarmingly high, of how many kids under the age of, say, 13 are obese and either borderline or are type 2 diabetic.
Sure.
Um, Especially in the greatest country in the world, known as America, right? Like, as far and advanced as we are, um, that's the case, you know.
Mhm.
It's just a crazy thing. And then they talk about genetic traits being a factor as well.
Mhm.
And that whole topic of genetic traits, I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the MTHFR mutation is probably a big culprit, and we really don't
Hmm.
talk about it. I mean, we talk about it, but
Yeah.
um, providers don't talk about it because they're not taught about it. And so,
Sarah, real quick, can you break that down for people again, what that is?
yeah, the MTHFR. So it's a defect in the methylation uh, process. So a lot of our foods, and well, I have a home in California. Our governor has has mandated that all of our tortillas be fortified and enriched. And so what that means is they're spraying a bunch of synthetic vitamins on there. And if you hear the word fortified or enriched, like anyone who doesn't really know what it is probably like, oh, that there's increased nutritional value in that. That's pretty awesome. I've got extra vitamins in there, but it's not. It's synthetic. And so if you've got this genetic mutation, one of the vitamins in particular, one of the things is folic acid. Folic acid, if you have this defect, you can't convert it to folate, which is the active form. And so downstream, you drive up this amino acid called homocysteine when you can't make that conversion. And homocysteine is extremely inflammatory. And if you think about what increases our risk for heart disease and strokes and autoimmune, homocysteine is way up there, kind of like the C-reactive protein or inflammatory marker. So homocysteine for me is an inflammatory marker. And I test that on all of my patients. And if I've got someone that's outside the normal range, and it's kind of funny because Big Pharma's reference window is not ideal, but I've recently seen on my lab reviews or my lab results when I get them back that the range has shifted, kind of like cholesterol. So they wanted it less than 13, and now I'm seeing the test results less than 15. I actually want my homocysteine between 6 and 8 for my patients. But you can see the shift in their reference window so that higher is still considered normal. But it's a genetic mutation. You inherit one copy from mom, one copy from dad. And if there's a mutation in that, it can slow down or prevent your ability to methylate or convert synthetic vitamins into active vitamins. And homocysteine is extremely inflammatory. So you've got you've got this metabolic cascade going on inside of you, unbeknownst to you, because you don't know it's hot. There's not like, unless you do a blood test, you don't actually know. You may feel kind of crappy. And a lot of people with elevated homocysteine tend to have things that happen where inflammation drives it, like high blood pressure, right? So if I have a patient with super high blood pressure and I'm trying everything I can under the sun to try to lower that blood pressure, including sometimes having to go on to prescription medication, I can't lower it. Like, is homocysteine the driving force? And if we can lower homocysteine, it's very easy to do. Get off those foods that are fortified and enriched and take a methylated B vitamin. Then we tend to see the body's inflammatory response calm down, and you don't have those kinds of things like MS. So there's a long version of homocysteine and the MTHFR gene mutation, but over 40% of the population has that. And so if you think about over 40% of the population has this and we're never addressing it. What do they say when you're pregnant? They say, take folic acid. Take folic acid, take folic acid. If you look at the, the name brand vitamins for pregnancy, folic acid is typically what's on there. And you don't want that. You want to make sure it says folate over folic acid. So everything we do, we kind of set up for failure. It's crazy. It's nuts. But yeah, so prenatal vitamins, if you're taking a prenatal, you have got to make sure it says folate, not folic acid.
Another thing that I would love to know, and of course, unless there was like an independent study on it, we'll never know the truth, but the connection with MS as a side effect to those safe and effective products that everyone's forced to get to send their kids to school and
100%
do things like that, right?
Yeah.
Because, when you dive into all the inserts of all of these safe and effective, miraculous products, there tends to be a lot of neurological side effects listed, right?
Absolutely.
So that's a whole.
One of them. Yeah.
What's that?
Guillain-Barré being
one
of them.
Yep. MS is listed on a few of them too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's definitely on some of the inserts. Seizures, like a lot of neurological misfires are there. And it's interesting because they touch on the Epstein-Barr virus being a common thing. And then when we get into a lot of these safe and effective products, they're either active or inactive viruses that are in them, right? So, and then you accompany that with adjuvants that break the blood-brain barrier? It it's a logical question, and I wonder if the three-letter agencies that are there for the good of mankind and to protect all of us, if they're concerned or interested in going down that rabbit hole to try to connect those dots. I doubt it, but it would be great if they were.
Yeah, there's too much money in it, but we can do trials because the Amish are a community that really don't vaccinate. And if you look at disease processes in the Amish, they're probably one of the healthiest people out here, and they don't they there's a lot of things, they don't typically have electronics and phones, and you start looking at there's just all these different hits. Vaccines is definitely something that they don't do. They source their own food, they grow it, they produce it, they know what their animals are eating, they know what's being put on their crops, they know, and so if you look at like what community is one of the healthiest communities, I think the Amish truly um, have the higher up on that one for sure. So if we look at people that don't comply with the corporate world of America and a lot of countries, their overall health is exceptionally better than anybody
For
else.
sure. For sure. And, to all the naysayers out there, it's like, the $1 million question is, right, is why are we seeing diseases in younger and younger and younger and younger? And again, don't come at me with, oh, well, there's better testing and yada, yada, yada. It's like every which way you turn, things are becoming chemically altered, more and more genetically engineered. Um, Again, look up in the sky. Those are not normal. Um,
Oh,
there's so many things attacking us on so many levels, and to all those people that run out every 2 years to take part in the selection season, whether it's on the national level, local level, that think that your voice is heard. Like these are the things that like beg that $1 million question. How are these people that you support so wholeheartedly argue with people that you've known for your whole life, sticking up for people that you've never met, that are just standing on a podium reading off of something, that their interest is not into this topic in any way, shape, or form. There's no movement on any of this. The only movement that you get on these topics are the hype of treatments for it, which, because those treatments are, they can be billed through insurance companies, right? That's the only thing that they have an interest in, is talking about treatments for all of these ailments that are a complete mystery as to why we're seeing perfectly healthy kids, teenagers, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, coming down with things that we've never seen before at an alarming rate. And like I said, we're going to touch on these in other episodes, but heart disease in 20, 30s, and 40-year-olds, and the World Health Organization talking about by, what is it, the year 2034, 36, they're on record saying of how much more cancer diagnosis there'll be worldwide.
yeah, double by 2030. Double the
2030,
number
yeah.
of diagnoses in
Yep.
less than 4 years, because
So
they're creating it.
yeah,
They tell you
thank
what's
you for
going to
being so
happen.
blunt. I try to beat around the bush, but you always come with it right down the middle, and I appreciate you for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Every single one of those patients that took that mRNA vaccine has got to be very they need to be extra cautious and get their screening is a whole nother topic, I guess, but do spike protein detoxes, make sure that you're doing things to try to eliminate those toxins, because, and for the love of God, stop getting more vaccines.
Please,
But
please.
yeah, you're not helping anyone, you're just hurting yourself.
And I will say
But
this too: limiting your your electromagnetic frequency exposure too, I
sure,
believe is a huge thing. We
massive.
were people in our movement were shouting off the mountaintops when they were starting to roll out 5G, and that's what I mean. These are all like silent, slow killers, right? That just happen over a course of time. I mean, maybe a lot of the stuff we're seeing too is due to that as well, in combination with everything else. But
Yeah.
God, at night, unplug your router. Um, most places, like, you can opt out of the smart meters on your house. They charge you more for it. I have to pay an extra $20 more, and I'm not allowed to go on the peak and off-peak hours with my power company. I have a flat rate for every day of the week, 7 days a week. But I have an old school analog meter on my house from the power company. I opt out
You
of
can
the
buy these
smart meter,
shields too. Yeah,
and you
you
could
can
do like
buy.
shungite shields, things like that. Absolutely. But
Yeah,
limit yourself with this stuff. This is stuff that's in your control. So none of this stuff is helping the nervous system when you're piling in electromagnetic frequencies, heavy metals, mRNA, different types of active and inactive viruses, genetically engineered food. If you're a consumer of all this stuff day in and day out, it's not a mystery as to why we see these spikes. And it's sad to see. And again, these are like the highlights on these articles that you're seeing all over. They talk about Christina Applegate and Selma Blair, the actresses. But look at even Christina Applegate. I think she was a breast cancer survivor, right? And then now this. And you look at Hollywood. No one who is working in Hollywood was able to opt out of the depopulation program 6 years ago, if they wanted to work.
no, there's a lot of fake vaccine cards going on, but
Yeah, but
you're right.
most of Hollywood, I think, was bought into that whole narrative anyway, with that left thinking ideology at the time. It's crazy, people. So, again, the fact that we're seeing all of these types of things in the headlines, it's when you overstand the matrix, it becomes less and less of a mystery, right?
Yeah,
And again, we want to bring it back full circle. Like, again, you cannot live in a bubble, but you can live to the best of your ability on your terms and how you want things. Again, there are a lot of things out of your control, but the things of like what you're going to put in your body, the quality, the amount of rest you're going to get, limiting your electromagnetic EMF exposure, like getting sunlight. There are things that you can in fact control. And I don't care how busy your life is, you must make the time for this stuff, because if you don't choose to make the time for this stuff, you will be forced to. And then when you're forced to with a grim diagnosis, you will find the time. You won't care. But please don't let it get to that point. It's never, I hate having those conversations with clients or clients to be when their back is against the wall, when this could have, they could have done things prior. So don't let it get to that place. And yeah, I mean, so this whole MS thing, obviously there's a lot of questions surrounding it, but there's a lot of obvious factors that arrows are pointing to that I think we were able to touch on in today's episode that should definitely, hopefully, plant seeds in your mind on things to look at in your life, and just to help try to connect the dots more to prevent something like this from happening in your life or a loved one's life, friends, your close circle. There are things that we can do to prevent this type of stuff. Do you have anything else you want to add to that, Sarah?
no, I think that kind of puts the nail in the coffin, so to speak. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
we are what we eat. We are what we expose ourselves to. We are even like what we choose to listen to, and the
Mm.
environment that we allow our brains to function in, and the it all plays a role. So it's mind, body, soul. You have to
Yeah.
fix all of it. You can't just pick one or the other. It's an all or nothing. And so every day we have many choices every day. God gave us free will, and
Mhm.
so it's not just a couple times a day. Every single thing we do, there's options, and so trying the best that you can, because nobody but Jesus is perfect. But trying to minimize or limit that as much as possible is going to be a positive in your overall health for sure.
Yeah, there are no empty actions that you can take. Every action you take every day is either a positive or negative impact on your mind, body, and soul. So always be mindful of everything that you do, everything that, to your point, listen to,
Hmm.
watch,
Hmm.
speak. All of that is a factor into your overall well-being.
Absolutely.
So in saying that, again, if you're joining us on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, or X, we appreciate you. Again, please pass these episodes out. We hope you're enjoying them. And I think we touched on everything that I wanted to hit. So As always, it's a pleasure to always speak with you, Sarah. I appreciate you and what you do
Yeah.
and what you're just who you are as a person in this world, because the world needs a lot more medical professionals like you. So thank you for doing what you do.
And vice versa.
Um,
So yeah.
Thank you. And everyone listening, we appreciate it. We appreciate you. Please pass the word. I am Frank Tortorici.
And my name is Sarah Green, and this is the Overstood Human Podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Overstood Human Podcast. Be sure to join in next week. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Always consult with your physician before starting any exercise program or doing anything contained in this podcast.